There was a moment in your history when everything changed. Not a war, not a natural disaster, not the invention of a tool or the discovery of fire. Something far quieter happened. Something that left no bones in the ground, no ruins to excavate, no artifact to carbon date. And yet it may be the single most important event in the entire story of your species. You stopped being an animal. Or more precisely, you began to believe that you had. And that belief, that one silent shift in how your ancestors saw themselves, changed the trajectory of every human life that followed, including yours. To understand it, you have to go back, way back, to a time before cities, before language, before the concept of a self existed in any form you would recognize today. Your ancestors lived in small roving bands, moving with the seasons, following food, sleeping under open sky. They were smart, dangerously smart. But they did not think about thinking. They acted. They reacted. They survived. Anthropologist
Thomas Suddendorf at the University of Queensland spent years studying what he calls mental time travel, the uniquely human ability to project yourself into the past and the future, to imagine scenarios that have not happened yet, to rehearse outcomes in your mind before your body commits to them. He found that no other animal does this the way humans do. Chimpanzees plan ahead, but only minutes. Scrub jays hide food for later, but cannot imagine a version of themselves in a different context retrieving it. Only humans can close their eyes and live inside a moment that has not arrived yet. That ability did not appear overnight. It crept in slowly, over hundreds of thousands of years, wired into expanding neural architecture, deeper prefrontal connections, a growing capacity to hold not just the present moment, but entire timelines inside a single mind. And then, something tipped. Researchers who study the archaeological record point to what they call the cognitive revolution, a period beginning roughly 70,000 years ago when human behavior suddenly leapt forward in ways that have no clear physical explanation. Tools became more refined. Trade routes appeared between groups that had never met. Burial rituals emerged. Art appeared on cave walls. Jewelry. Music. Symbols whose meaning had to be agreed upon by people who were not present when the symbol was first made. That last detail is the one that matters most. When your ancestors scratched a mark onto a cave wall, and that mark meant something to a stranger 50 miles away who had never seen it drawn, something extraordinary had happened. An idea had escaped a single mind and lived independently in the world. Meaning had become shared. Reality had become negotiable. Historian Yuval Noah Harari calls this the ability to believe in fictions. Not as an insult, but as the most precise description of what makes humans different from every other creature on Earth.
A chimpanzee cannot be convinced to give up a banana today in exchange for infinite bananas in paradise after death. A lion cannot be made to feel loyalty to other lions it has never met through the power of a shared story. But humans can. Humans do. Every single day. The nation you feel loyalty to is a fiction. The money in your pocket is a fiction. The laws that govern your behavior exist only because enough people collectively agreed to believe in them. None of these things exist in the physical world the way a rock or a river does. They exist because your species discovered how to hold shared beliefs about things that cannot be seen or touched. And here is the question that should sit uncomfortably in your chest. When did the animal end and the fiction begin?
Primatologist Frans de Waal spent decades studying the social behavior of chimpanzees and bonobos, and what he found was not a clean line between animal and human. He found empathy in chimpanzees. He found reconciliation after conflict. He found what looked unmistakably like fairness, like grief, like joy. He found animals that comforted each other after trauma, that shared food with strangers, that played games with rules. De Waal argued that human morality did not descend from the sky or emerge from rational philosophy. It evolved. It grew out of primate social behavior the same way your thumb grew out of a more ancient hand. The emotions that make you feel guilt when you lie, satisfaction when you help someone, discomfort when you witness
Cruelty. Those are not uniquely human. They are inherited. They are ancient. They were running in creatures that lived millions of years before the first human being drew its first breath. So what changed? What changed is that your ancestors began to tell stories about what those feelings meant. An animal feels fear. A human builds a religion around what the fear is for.
An animal feels attachment to its offspring. A human writes poetry about what that love means in the context of mortality. An animal defends its territory. A human declares that the territory belongs to a god who gave it specifically to this group of people for reasons that stretch back to the beginning of time. The animal experience and the human experience are not different in their raw material. They are different in the layer of meaning your species learned to drape over everything. Cognitive scientist Mark Pagel at the University of Reading argues that language was the turning point, not just as a communication tool, but as a weapon of social coordination. Language allowed your ancestors to synchronize their beliefs at scale, to tell the same story to 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, and have all of them walk away with roughly the same picture in their minds. This had never been possible before, and it made cooperation at a scale no other species had ever achieved not just possible, but inevitable. A wolf pack coordinates through hierarchy and instinct. A human army coordinates through a shared narrative, through a story about who they are, why they are fighting, what they stand for, what awaits them if they win. The story is what makes the army more than a group of frightened mammals with weapons. The story is what makes them willing to die. And once your ancestors discovered the power of the story, there was no going back. They began to tell stories about themselves, not just about the world, about who they were inside it. They developed the concept of a soul, a self that persisted beyond the body, that had value beyond its biological function, that was connected to something larger and more permanent than a single life. The animal had become a character in its own narrative. This is where the line is drawn, not in the genome, not in the skeleton, not in the size of the brain. The line is drawn the day your ancestor looked at the night sky, and instead of simply feeling the ancient primate unease of darkness and open space, asked, what does it mean? That question, what does it mean, may be the most consequential sentence in the history of life on Earth. No other creature asks it. No other creature needs to. But once your species began asking it, everything else followed. Every religion, every philosophy, every law, every war, every act of extraordinary kindness and extraordinary cruelty, every painting, every poem, every scientific theory, every civilization that has ever risen and fallen. All of it traces back to the moment a human being looked at experience and refused to let it simply be, refused to let it pass unmarked, reached for a story to hold it in. You are not the last animal. You never stopped being one. Your body still runs on the same ancient hardware, the same hunger, the same fear, the same drive to belong, to matter, to survive. But you are the only animal that knows it is an animal. And that knowledge, that unbearable self-awareness, is both the heaviest thing your species carries and the force behind every extraordinary thing it has ever made. Tonight, when the world goes quiet and your mind keeps running, asking questions the darkness cannot answer, that is not a malfunction. That is the thing that makes you human.